on behalf of the 5 political groups, now I call in debate Mr. Eduard Afghanian from Armenia. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear colleagues. Indeed, the crisis in Ukraine and its humanitarian consequences are of utmost importance for the Council of Europe at this point. And unfortunately, as one could anticipate, Azerbaijan took advantage of the total preoccupation of the international community with the Ukrainian crisis, undertaking blatant actions in breach of European Convention of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms. More specifically, based on the government's request, the European Court of Human Rights indicated interim measures by calling on Azerbaijan to refrain from actions that would contribute to breaches of civilians' convention rights and to respect their obligations under the European Convention of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms. Despite the foregoing, even after the indication of the interim measures by the court, Azerbaijan has continued to violate its obligations under the Convention. As such, since February 2022, Azerbaijani armed forces have continuously terrorized the population of the bordering villages of Artsakh through various criminal acts of physical threat and psychological pressure, through direct, threatening and intimidating statements addressed to the civilian population using loudspeakers. In regularly played statements, the population of bordering villages are being told to stop farming and leave their homes, otherwise being threatened by physical reprisal of their families. During the same period, on March 7th, the gas supply to Nagorno-Karabakh was disrupted, leaving over 150,000 people without heating, with 1.5 meters of snow on the ground at an unprecedented freezing condition. With much international pressure, Azerbaijan restored the gas supply on March 19th, only to cut it out again after 2 days. Dear colleagues, all of the above mentioned is a classical example of an act of ethnic cleansing. And while on international platforms, Azerbaijani officials often state that the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is over and that Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh can live peacefully in their homes, on the ground, however, Azerbaijan is attempting to force a final round of ethnic cleansing of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, taking advantage once again of international community's distraction by the Ukrainian crisis. Despite this, however, Armenia remains committed to an agenda of peace in the South Caucasus and sees the final and peaceful resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict under the auspices of the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairmanship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eduard. Now I call on the debate Mr. Vladimir Vardanian from Armenia. Vladimir, you have the floor.
Chair. Oh, thank you. Honorable Mr. Chair, dear colleagues, yesterday on April 24, Armenians all over the world were commemorating the memory of the victims of the Armenian genocide, organized and perpetrated by the Ottoman authorities in such a cruel and inhuman manner that the international community was obliged to invent a new term for qualification of such international outrages: crimes against humanity. Despite the fact that the consequences of the Armenian genocide are still echoing within the Armenian community, and despite the fact that even today, after 107 years, this issue is still quite sensitive for all of us, the Republic of Armenia, from the very beginning of its independence, has declared its policy of normalization of relations with Turkey without any precondition. We are consecutively following this path and reiterating our willingness to normalize bilateral relations. But are our counterparts as sincere in this process as we are? I would like to show you something. Look, this is a sign of so-called Buzkurt or Grey Wolves, a radical terrorist organization responsible for a series of terroristic attacks and other crimes committed against Armenians, Kurds, other minorities, and organization which is allegedly connected to the assassination of the John Paul II, Pope, and so on. You may ask why I am showing you this sign. And what is the interrelation between my speech and progress report? Now, dear colleagues, I have no intention to deviate from the discussion. We are discussing here the progress of our organization, progress of fulfillment of our obligation, progress in protection of our values. I'm showing you it because 2 days ago, Mr. Çavuşoğlu, the incumbent Turkish foreign minister, has shown this to the participant of the peaceful demonstration in Uruguay, demanding the recognition of the Armenian genocide. It is strange, dear colleagues, that a high-level European diplomat and politician promotes such a sign. It becomes even more unacceptable when it is done by a former president of this parliamentary assembly, a person who here in this hemicycle spoke about democracy, human rights and rule of law. The person whom all of us gave support and right to represent all of us and disseminate ideas of the Council of Europe, protect the European values, allows himself to promote such a radical symbol. It is also worth mentioning that this kind of actions endanger the possible confidence-building process among the two societies. Dear colleagues, here I would like to once again state clearly that Armenia are very devoted to the European values, and we are continue to do our best to normalize Armenian-Turkish relations, expressing hope that our Turkish counterparts will have enough will to open the mutual border and establish normal relations with Armenia and contribute to the de-escalation and building of sustainable peace in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir. Now I call on the debate Mr. Samet Seydov from Azerbaijan. Samet, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. You see, dear friends, how difficult to speak in this assembly when your colleagues from Armenia try to mislead this organization, try to present everything which belonging to Azerbaijan and Turkey in a black way. Why my colleagues didn't mention that Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, Çavuşoğlu, physically attacked? Why they didn't mention that in the center of Yerevan they had erected the statue for Necdet, the pro-fascist and fascist representative? Why they didn't mention that 1 million refugees we still have in Azerbaijan, and they are not able to return back to the liberated territories because of polluted by mines territories of my country? And still yesterday, Azerbaijanis killed by these mines in my territory. I prepared the report about a speech about the peace process, which President of Azerbaijan and Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Phashinyan, agreed under the auspices of Charles Michel in Brussels. I was going to speak about this peace because the new reality gave us the golden opportunity to create this peace. And it's very strange. I have some cognitive dissonance in my brain because your Prime Minister said we agreed with Azerbaijani proposals. We agreed to accept Azerbaijani suggestions, which we gave to Armenian colleagues. And now a representative of Armenian delegation speaks against their Prime Minister position, against the national interest of Armenians who are looking for peace in the region. And Azerbaijan has done and will do everything for this peace. My dear friends, time has come to think about reconciliation and confidence-building measures between Azerbaijanis and Armenians. You know, I'm very frank with you, my dear friends. We are even against to be a part of the committee on conflict between member states. Because I think, and on behalf of my delegation, we should create ad hoc committee on reconciliation between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I mean relationships. Enough to speak about the war. Enough to think in a revanchist ideas. Return back to the values of the Council of Europe. And my last point. If in very many years ago, international community properly reacted to ethnic cleansing, to occupation by one state of another state, nothing would happen with Georgia, with Crimea, and now with Ukraine. Time has come to be proper and to do our best for peace in the region. And I invite all my friends and colleagues from Armenia to sit together with Azerbaijan and to think about the peace for Armenians and Azerbaijanis. Thank you.
Thank you, Samet. Before giving the floor to the next speaker, there is a request for a point of order by Mr. Aydin. Mr. Aydin, you have the floor for a point of order.
Yeah, I'm very disillusioned, honestly, you know, because we are having a very private session, which is based on the Russian aggression on Ukraine. But unfortunately, again, the tradition repeats itself. When I listen to my Armenian colleague, Mr. Vardanyan, you know, he made an unsubstantiated, you know, accusation about a signal, about a symbol, which has done, you know, by every single Turkish citizen, wherever he lives or she lives, you know. And why? Because I'm a professor of culture at the same time. I know most of the cultural heritage is based on legends and stories. And if you look at the Turkish background, you know, Turkish culture, we believe that it is the symbol of the exodus from Ergenekon. And that symbol is used any political figure in Turkey, from left to right, from, you know, any group. And it turns to be a kind of friendship and symbol. Now, you know, as if it is a symbol which is totally illegal or forbidden, and you know, having said that, trying to accuse of the foreign minister Çavuşoğlu by doing that symbol. I am telling that symbol is also made by a very famous American university students, University of New Mexico. That is the symbol of that university as well. It is called in Latin Lobo, and the symbol of Lobo, being a member of that, you know, university, is requiring to do that symbol. So
Thank you very much.
You know, after such a very good normalization period which has been started between these two countries, why still you are trying to use any simple opportunity?
Thank you very much, Mr. Aydin. This was
create a crisis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You for making your point of order. No, we are not going to continue this discussion. The next on the speakers list is Mr. Rafael Husseinov from Azerbaijan. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair, dear colleagues. I would like to reiterate the views I expressed in my recent speech on progress reports. In addition to demonstrating the work done and achievements during the reporting period, this report should propose answers to questions about what we should do tomorrow and what we should be prepared for. A timely step is significant in all areas of life. A step taken in time signifies a slight anticipation of the future. The timely step is to anticipate what is happening and help control it. Simply observing events or making conclusions after they have happened is, in the old-fashioned way, just a chronicle historiography. The situation on the continent is far from satisfactory. Various crises replace each other. The arrival of new waves of anxiety is clearly felt. The Council of Europe, as an influential and experienced international organization, is certainly accountable to the continent and the world. All current developments also demonstrate that we have been spectators on many issues and haven't reacted more seriously in time. If 20 years ago the sharpest reaction had been taken to the fact of the occupation by one member state of the territory of another one, if decisive measures had been taken to correct such a strange situation without delay, then similar conditions would not have been repeated in the fate of others. We, as representatives of Azerbaijan, are talking about this not only now after the events. We had taken our timely step. In the very early 2000s, we talked about it with all our might and passion. In fact, speaking of our own problems, we sounded the alarm about the approaching disasters. When we raised these questions 2 decades ago, we had in mind not only ourselves, our own tragedies of occupation and exile. We also made it clear that if action was not taken in time, the disaster would move towards you, and 1 million refugees and displaced persons would turn into tens of millions. The necessary, decisive steps were not taken in time, including also by the Council of Europe. The outcome is a shaky Europe and the world we now live in, the tense reality we now find ourselves in, the bitter reality of war, millions of refugees and economic problems. We must get rid of the habit of looking after the departing train. Instead of commenting on what is happening today, we need to think about where all this will lead, and we must take urgent action in advance to prevent deeper crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rafael. Now I call in the debate Mr. Armen Gevorgian from Armenia. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, yesterday on April 24, Armenians all around the world and many other nations were commemorating the Armenian genocide, a crime against humanity that 2 members of the Council of Europe, Turkey and Azerbaijan, are denying. The International Association of the Genocide Scholars calls denial a last stage of the same crime of genocide. There is something else that in our days Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey, denies too: the right of Armenians to live in their historical homeland. After the 44-day war unleashed by Azerbaijan in fall 2020, the Armenian people in the Republic of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, has faced a dilemma: continue pursuing their path of independent development and life in dignity, preserving their national identity, or repeat the dire destiny of our compatriots that once lived in what now is part of Azerbaijan and a region by name of Nakhichevan. In the course of 70 years as a part of Soviet Azerbaijan, the entire Armenian population of Nakhichevan has completely disappeared. Armenian cultural and religious heritage in Nakhichevan have been completely demolished. Now Azerbaijan is trying to force the Armenian of Artsakh to have the same destiny. I call the Council of Europe to send a clear and strong signal to all parties of the Karabakh conflict that the international community will continue to support 3 main principles for the conflict resolution defined by OSCE Minsk Group co-chairmanship. One of these principles, namely non-use of force or the threat of force, has been violated by Azerbaijan many times and continues to be violated these days. That is why the international community cannot demand the Armenian people of Artsakh to live under the rule of Azerbaijan, that has been carrying out a state policy of ethnic cleansing of Armenians, a state that has unleashed 3 large-scale wars against them in 3 decades, a state that is trying to rewrite the history of the region in order to deny the mere existence of Armenian heritage and culture, and finally, a state that is not shy to publicly declare territorial ambitions against the Republic of Armenia too. Mr. President, I believe that peace in our region does not have any alternative. For long and sustainable peace, solutions are needed that must be mutually acceptable. The important challenge for our organization is to limit Azerbaijani efforts to secure the silent consent of Europe in its business of denying the right of people of Artsakh to self-determination in exchange of gas and oil. And finally, Mr. President, it was shocking to see that the person who was the president of this assembly for 2 years, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of a member state, Çavuşoğlu, communicates the Armenian with the gestures of a Turkish nationalist terrorist organization. Such behavior should be unacceptable and condemned by Council of Europe. And I call to my colleagues from Turkey with the same efforts to recognize the genocide of Armenians. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Mr. George Fawkes from the United Kingdom. George, you have the floor.
Well, Mr. President, that was a very impressive, albeit novel, speech by Ian Littlegranger on the progress report of the Bureau. Now, although I agree with a lot of what he said, I'm going to leave that now, and we've got a couple more debates on the Russian intervention, one of which I hope to participate in. And I'm certainly not going to enter into the debate between Armenia and Azerbaijan, not tonight anyway. I want to raise just two rather more mundane issues. Day after day, night after night, along with all of us here, I spend a lot of time discussing reports, well-written reports, detailed amendments, voting on them, and we really do spend a lot of time. We put a lot of effort into it. What I wonder sometimes is these reports then go to the Council of Ministers, Committee of Ministers. Then what happens to them? What do we do to press them with national governments, the only people who can really take some action on that? And then the second point I want to raise is the image, the profile of the Council of Europe. Now in the United Kingdom, I've been encouraging even more information and understanding of the Council of Europe, particularly that we're no longer members, sadly, no longer members of the European Union. But I could go into a bar or a cafe in Edinburgh, and I don't think I'd bump into anyone who knew about the Council of Europe. Now, I understand that the Bureau has a particular role. I thought I had a loud voice. I thought the Bureau had a particular role to pursue and to promote the work that we do, and to make sure it's followed up, and to make sure our profile is raised. And so my question to Ian Littlegranger is, what are you and the Bureau doing to increase the knowledge and understanding of the work of the Council of Europe, and particularly of the Parliamentary Assembly? And what are you doing to make sure that the resolutions that we spend so much time and effort on are picked up and acted upon? Otherwise, we might feel that we could be wasting some of our time here.
Thank you, George. There is a point of order again, but we are not going to continue the same debate. So you have 30 seconds to make your point, Ahmed.
Sure, Mr. President. Indeed, I supposed also that we will proceed based on the introduction presentation by Mr. Granger, as we did in Bureau. But again, this session was hijacked by Armenian colleagues. It turned to a discussion.
Sorry, Ahmed. Sorry.
I blame them.
Shut down. Shut up. Shut up. There is no point. There is a point of... sit down. Relax. Listen. Relax. Mr. Yildiz has the floor for a point of order, not for a debate, because then you should have been on the list. So make your point of order, and that's it. And it doesn't help if you all stand up, you won't get the floor. Mr. Yildiz, 30 seconds. Point of order. If you don't have, then we continue the debate.
Substantial issue, Mr. Granger made introduction. I blame Armenian colleagues because they criticized unfairly the deep political national movement in Turkey, unfairly. And Minister Çavuşoğlu, President of this Assembly, former one, he is doing his job. But unfortunately, also in Latin America, Armenian radicals hijacked the meeting also, that he reacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Rubinian, you have 30 seconds for your point of order. For your point of order. And it does not help if everybody stands up. It's not very convincing. Mr. Rubinian.
Thank you. Mr. President, I have a problem with how you deal with this session. You gave 2 points of order to two of our Turkish colleagues who spoke no words about the point of order. This is a problem. Secondly, you are not in a position to tell anyone in this hemicycle to shut up. Thirdly, I want to ask you, Mr. President, is any kind of sign, aggressive nationalist sign, allowed in this hemicycle or not? If your answer is not, please make sure those signs are not used here. And thirdly, please continue dealing with the points of order as they are. And don't allow our colleagues to make statements which are not dealing with the order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Mr. Vardanian, who also asked for a point of order. 30 seconds, Mr. Vardanian, for a point of order, please.
No, okay. Mr. Chairman, first of all, dignity is the basis of human rights, and nobody can offend anybody sitting here. And the very words "shut up" is offensive. Sorry for saying this. The second, yes, points of order is only for the procedure, but not for substance. The third, I would like to request Mr. Little Granger to answer a question, whether it is normal that former President of this Assembly using the signs of radical organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now we are going to continue our debate, and I will ask the leaders of the delegation of Azerbaijan and Armenia to meet me during the week to discuss this way of debate. Next on the debate will be Mr. Kamal Yafarov from Azerbaijan.